What's up, everybody? This is Karak with ACG, and as always, it's my continuing mission to bring you reviews that aren't 2 minutes long or filled with sponsored bullcrap that'll probably get demonetized anyway. You know, there's important questions in life I think we all have. How in the world is Keith Richards still alive? Does Conor McGregor's mouth wear its own black belt? And the most important, what if Channing Tatum didn't die in the last crappy G.I. Joe movie, but lived into the future when aliens attacked and took command of a ragtag military force in a futuristic battle for the future of mankind? Well, I can answer the last one. We get XCOM, or in this case, XCOM 2 War of the Chosen. It's an expansion for XCOM 2 from Firaxis Games, and it comes out on August 28th on the PS4, Xbox One, and PC for the suggested retail price of $39.99. Also, big thanks to 2K for supplying the review code early, which, as you guys know, means I will go out and get a code and give it away to patrons in the monthly giveaway. As always, if you like the video, maybe subscribe. So here's my review for XCOM 2 War of the Chosen. Karak's Nord's Irregulars, a futuristic version of the Young Guns movies, and finding out what it's like to play Shadow of War, The Choosing. Graphics are up first. You know, while XCOM 2 was no slouch originally, I think there's a bit of a sheen put onto War of the Chosen, and it's really hard to identify where exactly it is, but it is there, from the fantastic over-the-top main enemies that make up the game's new subtitle to the same little amazing animations we've seen before. Little things like smashing out a window with the butt of your gun and then peeking just a bit around the corner so you can bake someone's noodles from 40 yards away. XCOM is such a dual-layer title, really offering an excellent detailed impression of a squad-based game, and then also excellent player feedback and special effects on top of that. Oh, and when I say special effects, I actually mean all of them. This is pretty much the 4th of July you always wanted as a kid, but you never got because it was illegal and pretty much would probably kill you. Also, luckily, once again, we're living in a world that Nabisco created, a world with the structural integrity of a friggin' Ritz cracker. Almost everything can be shot, sliced, bombed, grenade, lasered, sniped, steel spiked, or leveled to the ground, leaving burning debris and nothing but the smoking remains of an enemy's cover as you laugh maniacally and then somehow still miss shooting them from 11 feet away, but I'll get to that in a second. Where XCOM 2 and Chosen really excels is the lighting, the palette that they have always chosen. I love it. It's got that feeling of what would happen if highbrow 1970s sci-fi mixed with someone's World of Warcraft deviant art page, and nowhere is this more prevalent than the first time you see the Chosen in this game. These are the main bad guys. Now, much of the game, even for the review, has rules for what I can show you when and where, but I have to say, the continued artistic look always alludes to a future just shiny enough to be cool, but dark enough to be scary as hell. Unfortunately, there are some issues here. First, the UI, in particular the geosphere itself. You know, that boring place you used to fly around in and basically use the world's slowest mission selector? Well, it really does its best impression of an Assassin's Creed game when you climb a tower and the game suddenly realizes that supposedly a character that's lived there for 30 years would probably know where all the important crap is. Icons overlap, there's sizes all over the place, and the original HUD was antiseptic, I get that. But that's like me saying, hey man, I took too many showers today, so let's go wallow in some pig crap. Overall, it also looks like some of the special effects have slightly been changed, and certainly the ragdoll, there's something slightly off about it that doesn't look as good, I would say, as the original. Now, with the NVIDIA 1080 and an i7 at 4.2, I was able to run everything on maximum settings at a mostly smooth 60 FPS at 1440p. There are a few things that are more enjoyable than taking your bite-sized team of armored brethren into battle, zooming in down low to get a good-sized look at an alien's awkwardly shaped head, and then blowing it clean off. The game looks good and really does present a unique atmosphere. Sound, music, and voice.
Green to go. Get in the water here.
I'll be there soon.
And you know what? Let's do music first. The music in XCOM has never really been subtle. In fact, it's like an audio salute to an alien fighting human-led republic or something like that. And I love that about it. It's got that mixture of heavy patriotism without the stodginess of something that's created hundreds of years ago. And it's got this thunderousness about it, and if there isn't a horn section playing, then there's going to be a horn section playing in about 30 seconds, and I also like that. Now, that's in the HUDs, the menus, the screens for choosing loadouts, and in the story. In the game proper itself, it is certainly more subdued, but I'd never say it takes a back seat like some soundtracks. Instead, it merges in and out of the sounds occurring in the game, so that moment you toss a grenade, it happens to align perfectly with horns announcing your enemy's demise. It's over the top, and honestly, that's pretty much where it should be. If anything, I can see a complaint being that the music is a bit repetitive, and yes it is, but for me at least, I felt that this was fine. Voice. I guess it's a good thing that no one from Star Trek Next Generation has anything else to do. It's like the developers went to a Comic-Con and were like, hey, you know what? You guys tired of making straight-to-video movies? Come on over and be an alien in a video game. Jonathan Frakes, John Delancey, Marina Sirtis, and Michael Dorn round out a cast that continues to deliver all the way from the hitman who isn't hitman main operative's voice who consistently reminds you that your level of sucking just shouldn't be possible, to what is probably the world's worst ninja, who basically enters an area, literally screams to everyone she's there, and then challenges you to find her, and then just keeps hiding in plain sight. It's done very well, and while not exactly emotionally charged, there are some sections later in the game regarding the Chosen as well as the new factions that I admit surprised me a bit and had some emotion to them. As a package, not bad voice at all. Sound. So War of the Chosen continues in its main game's footsteps, really offering an excellent overall representation of what it would be like to pit humans against, well, pretty much everything else, while wielding all manner of strangely dangerous weaponry under your arms. One of the things I noticed a bit more here, and this could have been the level design, but the separation in just overall soundstage actually felt a bit wider here, and it was fine in the first game. If anything, though, I would have loved for many of the guns to have more varied sounds. Maybe some tiny pitch changes and volume changes would have done wonders to really solidify the environment and the fact that everybody was shooting different weapons. There isn't much to add here that wasn't said in the original game review. I like the sound. And of course, that brings us to gameplay and a bit about the story, even though the story is much the same, sort of. You see, because War of the Chosen is much more like Enemy Within, taking the basic structure of the main title and exploding it out with new systems, than it is a unique new location or fully separate campaign. And my lord, are there a lot of elements. The first are new resistances. Now, these aren't connected to XCOM, and they've risen up against the alien invaders on their own. And the invaders, to quell this uprising, basically invented the world's scariest exterminators to root and boot out your troublesome kind. Now, the new resistances are the Reapers, Skirmishers, and Templars, and the new enemies are the Chosen. The new factions all have their strengths, and where XCOM has been about growing something special out of the generally mundane, as in the human characters, the new resistances sort of show up already amazing, like the shiny new kid. Take, for instance, the Reapers. They're basically the world's scariest assassins group, and they can use the probably named, because it sounds cool, shadow mode, so that they can take abilities, use them, and even attack without being seen. Or let's look at the Skirmishers, members of an internal Advent rebellion bent on kicking their brothers and sisters off Mother Earth. They use the game's heaviest firepower as the boot. But the uniqueness here is absolutely their stunning and really surprising dexterity. Not only can they fire their weapon twice in a turn, but they have a Batman grappling hook. And I'm telling you this, there are few things cooler in XCOM than escaping enemies' attacks by just saying, see ya, saluting them, and then grappling off into the unknown. Actually, one thing is cooler than that, and it's using that same grappling hook on an enemy, tearing them off their feet so that they land in front of you, and then stabbing them in the gut, sort of like a more evil Batman. And lastly, you have the Templars. Now, these are basically the warlocks from Destiny who decided to hightail it to a better game. Outfitted with a series of psionic abilities that power other abilities as you kill enemies, soon you'll be performing moves like parry after combo powering up by killing people prior. Also, they level up a bit differently. They use ability points to buy skills, and that allows you to buy skills from lower levels and not locking you away from them as you go. Now, of course, where does that leave you, the human race? Pretty much right in the middle. You see, just because everyone's getting wiped off the pretty much already ruined face of the earth, it doesn't mean folks are going to get along. And frankly, some of the resistances have actually done more damage to one another than they've pretty much done to the Advent in the first place. And a lot of the game is about sort of solidifying that relationship again. It's your job to get them to get along, to work with you, and to frankly wrestle three opposing leaders that almost seem hell-bent on wanting the exact opposite of one another as you play the game. Now, to do this, like all XCOMs, you start out in your own little mini-fortress that always reminds you of the big track tank the Jawas went dune-bugging in on Tatooine, but about 1,000 times bigger. Your job is to stem the ever-growing menace of the Advent and the Chosen and try to get the various resistances working together, all the while upgrading your ship. And to do all this, the game's always split into three sections. The first is the base itself, upgrading it with intel and money you collect from flying around the world stealing people's food when they aren't looking and taking out enemies in battle. Then you have the Geoscape I talked about earlier, an overland map where information about the groups is presented to you and you choose what to do. Now, once you've settled on your own private bay route and you know what mission you want to do, you're off to the races. Now, not much has changed here in the turn-based game itself, with the basic units able to take one action as well as move or move a bit farther that burns up two actions. Missions can have easy requirements like kill the enemies or sabotage some piece of alien tech. But I am telling you right now, don't even for a second think that things can't go sideways. XCOM has always loved its reinforcement-heavy kind of gameplay, with units erupting out of the playing field like Magic the Gathering summons have gone nuts, and that happens here too, as they're piped in steaming hot on the Things on Wings military transports that seem to just dumpster drop units all around you. It's that consistent questioning of what's going to happen approach and the game's overall lethality that really hold back the new units and the heroes from actually being overpowered. Now, sure, you can shoot twice or you can grapple away from enemies, but if you just blew up the only truck within 90 feet and the enemies are surrounding you, what are you going to grapple to? But of course, we don't want to leave humans out. For example, soldiers who fight together a great deal might form a fighting bond, meaning if they get close to each other in battle, they give bonuses like extra actions. And to add to that complexity, they've added traits as well. Now, basically, as you're taking your heavily armed heroes into battle, they start to go a little crazy, and sometimes they end up getting traits like hyper-aggressiveness, which is sort of going into Overwatch regardless of what you do, or reloading the gun all the time, even if they have a ton of bullets, like some Adderall-ridden COD player. Of course, what would jittering PTSD-ridden best friends be without excellent enemies to homicide against? And Chosen adds a couple, like the priests, psionic-wielding warrior wizards with railguns and the ability to microwave your brain from about 50 feet away. Or the less cool-looking specters, who somewhat look like green-screen suit-wearing YouTubers who got dipped in metallic black paint and then were told the secret of alchemy and learned how to make copies of everything in the game world, including your team. Frustrating is fighting a dude you just leveled up, who's you. But to me, the interesting proposal that Chosen has for you is one that we really haven't seen before. What if there was a third group that lived in the desiccated remains of humanity's cities and really just disliked everyone and thought the best way to get their angst out was to chew on people? That's the Lost, one part zombie, one part Australia's evil creatures combined and drawn by sound. Yep, that means all that fancy high explosive ordnance yours truly loves to use. That only works for a bit now because the Lost show up on the scene and some versions of them can friggin' scoot, eating up distance on the level in a way that is really hard to describe. To combat this, the game has a built-in feature that works against the Lost only. It's a headshot feature that basically means if you score a headshot against one of the Lost, you get a free action, creating a combo of cranium-busting goodness as you ruinate half-humans at cock and rock speeds. The only problem is, it doesn't really feel like it's connected to anything else because it just works with them. And lastly, we have the Chosen. Basically, when the game starts, it puts together 3 enemies, sort of like the 3 resistance groups, an assassin, warlock, and a hunter, and then randomizes a number of elements from them, like bonuses and negatives. Thus, they become your true arch-enemies in the game. And yes, if you're thinking this sounds like the Nemesis system from that Mortal game, you would be right, because it is exactly that, all the way down to the enemies gaining knowledge and bonuses from you if they escape battle. And battle you they will, because these suckers, in what is really a brilliant piece of design, show up randomly in some missions. That means you might just be doing a typical rescue mission, and then Matilda the cottage cheese-faced assassin shows up and starts somersaulting your dudes to death left and right. And then, if you escape, proceeds to call you on your telephone in the base and rub it in. And with the Chosen, we also see a serious misstep in my book. You have to kill him more than once to really kill him, and that is annoying because the sense of victory I had was washed completely away when I got a call from my jilted ex-assassin lover who I'd just shot in the face telling me that she had actually retreated. Sure, if retreating means collapsing like someone cut the strings off an ugly puppet. Other than that, it's well done, and in another long line of additions, they add a uniqueness to the game that wasn't missing from the original, but's appreciated now that it's here. What does all this do, though? Because it is a lot of additions to a basic game. Well, to be honest, what it does is it adds a subtlety and complexity to the title that was never seen before, and while it didn't really need it, once you start playing it, it is absolutely a stunning group of additions. That brings us to fun factor. You know, XCOM's always been about restriction of resources, like playing chess, but not one game, it's 6 games, and they're all run by a bot AI, and you start with just pawns. The beauty of XCOM is that somehow they've always made it fun. The problem here is, and I think it will bother some people, is the fact that this game does an incredible amount of cribbing. I mean, even more so than the map stuff. You have your Destiny character types, you have your purifiers ripped from the Division, you have your zombie plant-looking dudes from The Last of Us, the bonding system from Fire Emblem, and the elements of Darkest Dungeon, and even this game's own mods in the Crazy Pants Traits editions, and then you have the Nemesis. Now, it's all packaged up in a very typical let's add 3 things on both sides kind of gameplay structure, and it is not a separate campaign, and I think that's why it's so noticeable. Is it bad? No, in fact, the game is really fun. And I think that that's one of the things that we always need to remember is that excellence in design doesn't need to come from being solely original. That's ridiculous. And some of the best games ever made are that way because they improved and adjusted what worked in other titles and made them their own. The excellence here is the fact that somehow it took all of this and put it together and made it feel like XCOM, even if there isn't that separate campaign. So as you guys know, I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, or never touch it again rating scale, with rent being replaced by deep sale for PC titles. For me, this is personally a buy. It adds a boatload of content, an almost unbelievable amount. It deepens the already deep combat, and it expands the already expansive story and gameplay. So that's it for me. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you disliked it, give it a thumbs down. I want to say a big thank you to all the patrons who actually allow for videos like this to be made. I definitely appreciate it. You are what keeps the channel going. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your week.